What's happening, y'all? This is your girl Megan. Welcome back to my channel if you're already a subscriber. But if this is your first time joining me on today, go ahead, hit that subscribe button because you know you want to. So today I'm going to be doing a birth chart reading on Mr. Tekashi 6ix9ine. Now, for those of you all who aren't familiar, he is the young man who has recently been indicted on some RICO charges. I believe he was out for maybe a good 1 or 2 years, right? I wouldn't even say that, but he came up in New York and he kind of promoted himself as this, what a lot of people call to be like a troll rapper. Because I mean, he really was trolling. Every time you looked up, he was in the headlines, antagonizing this rapper, antagonizing that rapper. And it was like watching wrestling, but like the rapper version of wrestling, kind of, sort of. And so, come to find out, the gang that because he claimed to be a blood, or he was a blood, I don't know. But the bloods that he actually was affiliated with allegedly were, I guess, trying to kill him. And eventually, the feds ended up indicting like everybody just for racketeering charges. And now it's come out that 6ix9ine was not the person that he portrayed to be, and he pretty much is doing everything that he can in order to avoid getting what could potentially be a life sentence, right? According to sources. So I just thought that it would be really interesting to look into his chart just to see what's going on, like, because he has always been somebody who kind of interests me in the manner that, like, you want to know what motivates him to do what he does. You know what I'm saying? And he's definitely been one of the first rappers in a long time to just actually, despite all of like the nefarious fucked up shit that like comes out about him, because if I'm not mistaken, like, didn't he get charged with like tampering with a minor or something like that? Like, he was in a video while one of his friends was fucking a 13-year-old. So all of this shit that comes out about him, and it's like, for a good minute he was on a winning streak. People liked him, people liked his music. His career seemed to kind of be on the up and up, and then I guess it took this like federal charges for him to get locked up. I don't know. But if you want to be honest, I do take issue with that, because people kind of overlooked him being an alleged pedophile, right? And he was kind of able to blase explain the whole ordeal away, but let people think that he's a snitch, quote unquote. The world stops, right? So that's the latest in the news. He's snitching. He's trying to avoid getting a life sentence or avoid getting the book thrown at him. And yeah, so here we are. And before I get started, y'all, my opinions that I have on him, as well as any other artist that I might do a reading on, exist independently of what I see in my reading, okay? I think I would like to think of myself as somebody who is objective enough to separate Megan's personal feelings from my findings. And I am literally interpreting my findings. Didn't really think I had to specify that, but a lot of you hoes got real hot in the pussy with that Sierra and Russell Wilson video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So Tekashi 6ix9ine was born on May 8th, 1996 in New York. It says, I'm using astrocharts.com because I either use that or Astro or AstroSeek sometimes. So yeah, this is what they have listed as his birthplace. So we're just gonna go along with it. It's close enough. This makes him a Taurus sun, with his sun being at the 18th degree of Taurus. Now, that number 18, I always say, is a very challenging number because it deals with materialism. This, especially in the sign of Taurus, because Taurus is the natural ruler of the second house, which deals with finances, which deals with resources, okay, with your value. So this could produce somebody who is very motivated by monetary gain, somebody who is very motivated by physical resources, wealth, okay? His moon is in the 27th degree of Capricorn. Now, depending on what site you go to, what form you're in, some people interpret his moon placement as being in Aquarius, probably because it's so late in Capricorn. But we're just going to go with his moon being in the sign of Capricorn for the sake of this reading, okay? Now, something that I'm noticing about his chart as I look it over that jumps out at me is his Venus in the sign of Gemini. Now, Gemini is the sign of duplicity. So a lot of times it deals with an element of somebody having two sides, right? It has that two-faced kind of energy. And the entire kind of, I guess, gimmick around Tekashi 6ix9ine is that he, was just this regular guy who kind of dressed himself up, put on this caricature of a rapper and kind of paraded himself to be a completely different person. And now he's dealing with the ramifications of such. Now, that could definitely have his Venus placement could definitely play a role in it. And to reinforce this, his Venus is actually in quincunx to his Neptune in the sign of Sagittarius, I think. Let me check. Yeah, well, no, Capricorn. So this aspect can actually create somebody who naturally feels isolated from the group, who feels kind of like a reject, a social outcast, somebody who feels even like victimized, ostracized, and they're kind of, especially with that Neptune influence, are kind of propelled to create this new identity, right? Because Neptune is all about illusions and dreams and even deceit, deception, lies. So these people can craft a new identity, so to speak. This aspect also points towards somebody who has fairly low self-esteem simply because they feel vulnerable, or they just feel insecure about presenting themselves as they are. They feel kind of insecure about how others will receive who they really are as a person, which when you apply it to Tekashi, it kind of makes sense because come on, like that could be a huge reason and why a lot of people just in the music industry period kind of alter their persona. And if you want to be 100% honest, Tekashi is not the first rapper to kind of adapt and take on a new persona, because a lot of these rappers aren't necessarily who they are in like their music, right? I just think he kind of took it to a whole new level, right? Because he probably felt like he had a lot to prove. But yeah, Venus in harsh aspects to Neptune can absolutely bring about issues with yourself, and it could kind of influence one to try to kind of overcompensate for that by adapting. And Neptune is a very deceptive kind of planet because it can literally shapeshift to, like match other people's energy. So that's why you have a lot of people who have, like, let's say if you have very strong Piscean energy, or if you just have a lot of Neptune energy in your chart, these people can be plagued with feelings of like low self-esteem, and they can even be the type of people who kind of take on other people's feelings about them and internalize how other people feel towards them. So there's that. And then the fact that his Neptune is in Capricorn creates this element of status, right? Because Capricorn is status driven. So there's a pretty good chance that a lot of this can stem from a place of wanting to be recognized within your society, or wanting to achieve a certain amount of fame, a certain amount of notoriety. And I mean, that's not that far-fetched. A lot of his actions were very much attention seeking, and at a certain level he kind of got what he wanted because the world paid him attention, even if it wasn't necessarily positive attention. But those can be the kind of results that you get with this placement. And something else that I find to be very interesting is that his Venus is 1 degree off from the fixed star Alheka, which it deals with somebody who has a very like sharp tongue, very combative verbal communication style. And as a result, it can lead to a lot of misfortune and even ultimately their downfall. And I remember there being this thing with people kind of, I mean, because Tekashi was one of those people who every time he had an issue with somebody, so to speak, he would get on social media and this man would say all kind of stuff. Like he would tell people to suck my dick with your mama's lips. Like, what does that even mean, really? But okay. Like, I mean, it was like no holds bars. And even in one instance when he got into it with Chief Keef or Chief Keef's cousin, he said something to the effect of like, he's going to put a hit or put some money on his head. And as soon as he got indicted, all of these conversations, all of these things that he had been saying to people online were instantly used against him. So that's very telling. And with going back to this, all of this Taurus energy, as far as his sun, Venus, and his Mars, this could absolutely deal with somebody who is very, very intelligent. And which I don't get the feeling that Tekashi is just a stupid person, but particularly the aspect that's kind of driving this home is that his Mars is forming a square to his Uranus. So not only does this placement make for somebody who is very controversial, these people can attract lots of scandal, they can attract lots of just negative attention because they tend to buck orthodoxy. That Uranus is all about, rebellion, right? And just being an individual. And it doesn't even, I mean, it doesn't have to be a good kind of individualism. It just has to be something that's completely different from what the societal norm is. And that's kind of what he did, especially when he would like talk to all of these rappers. I mean, I'm talking about rappers who have been in the game for a minute, these so-called respected rappers, OG rappers. I mean, he would talk to them any kind of way. So he definitely bucked that orthodoxy in hip hop, which is why you have everybody telling him like, oh, slow down and you don't know what you're doing. And, people looked at him as like just this indigent, disrespectful kid. And we can have a conversation about whether he was or not. But this aspect definitely supports that energy signature. But also with his Uranus actually being in its home sign of Aquarius, this could deal with him making money by way of groups. Of like a larger group. And what I'm thinking was coming to my mind is that blood gang. This could be his affiliation with those gangs. This could be him involved in nefarious activities with gangs. I mean, Aquarius is the home of the natural ruler, of the 11th house, which actually deals with friendships, but it also deals with organizations. So yeah, it could definitely deal with money, financial gain by way of a organization like that. And quite frankly, this could even point towards him being extorted by said group. Now his moon is conjoined to his Neptune and they're forming a trine to his Mercury, which deals basically with him being a liar, pretty much. Like just straight up somebody who is really good at crafting fantasy, at selling wolf tickets, somebody who's really good at altering, manipulating reality, manipulating the facts. Now, on the more positive side, this aspect can create somebody who's very artistic, very creative, somebody who's really good at kind of creating something, leaving something more beautiful and glamorous than it was when they touched it, right? But on the negative side, this could absolutely deal with somebody just straight up being a whole liar. Now, another very telling aspect is that his Mars is forming a square to his Neptune. And this could deal with somebody who naturally attracts a lot of scandal because people perceive them to be disingenuous. So a lot of the activity that's going on, especially with his moon and Mercury being enshrined to his Mars, he's not that good at the deception because people are naturally going to be able to pick up on it, okay? And as a result, this can cause a lot of controversy. And it reinforces this theme of having to overcompensate because people with this aspect have to literally put a lot of energy and effort into appearing like they're upstanding citizens, right? Like they're just good people. And uh, 9 times out of 10, this aspect deals with somebody who, once again, feels like vulnerable and weak and kind of has just like this poor self-image thing going on. And the way it works is they tend to attract people who can see through that, and some people take advantage of that. Hence, the situation that he's in now, where you're surrounded by people who, claim to have your back, but they'll extort you every chance they get. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm not mistaken, once again, I know somebody's going to correct me down in the comment section, but didn't he get kidnapped by one of the members of his own crew? You see what I'm saying? So it can put you in situations to where you try to be something, right? You try to come off a certain way, but people aren't buying it, and you set yourself up as a mark in the process. And then finally, one of the most telling aspects in his chart is the fact that he's an Aries South node, which places his North node in the sign of Libra, and his North node is actually conjoined to his Chiron, and that Libra or Chiron in Libra absolutely deals with somebody who it has an inability to be themselves. Now, with his Saturn being conjoined to his South Node in Aries, first of all, this points towards him having issues with authority, daddy issues, which reinforces, like I said, a lot of the behavior, just him just kind of bucking orthodoxy and being just very much like a polarizing kind of figure. You can kind of tell he has this kind of disdain for authority. So that could be supported there. But Aries South nodes tend to be people who are just naturally selfish. They come from a previous life of just being literally all about self, of getting what they want first, and not really being able to coexist in a group and kind of create harmonious ties with the people around them. And I guess maybe you can make an argument for him behaving this way because he was absolutely very divisive in the way that he kind of went about navigating the music industry. But also, I would even argue that he kind of took his North Node too far, like to the utmost extreme, because Aries South nodes have a karmic responsibility to be more relatable in this lifetime, to kind of go along with the group. And I think he kind of like took that to just the utmost extreme by conforming and kind of creating his image, adapting his image to reflect that of this super duper hard gangster rapper, simply because it's kind of like the expectation for his music genre. Chiron in Libra people are known for wearing a mask, so to speak. So these could be people who are completely different behind closed doors than they are in public. And with his moon squaring Uranus, this just reinforces him being somebody that naturally pisses people off. People with this aspect can absolutely be very just like eccentric. They can exude a lot of odd behavior that just shakes up, just like I said, that natural sense of just standard society, what people consider as, tradition. These people can get a lot of backlash for being rebellious. People can start to view them as disruptive, reckless, and they tend to have a lot of issues like making and maintaining like long-term relationships, and not even just like romantic relationships, but just with friends, because they're so fickle and people don't really know what to expect from them. People don't even know whether they're coming or whether they're going. And a lot of times these people don't even know whether they're coming or going themselves. And now finally, one of the more telling aspects in his chart is the fact that his Saturn, which is conjoined to his South Node, is opposing his North Node Chiron, okay? And this could absolutely kind of reinforce these issues that he's having with the legal system, because Libra, it represents court. It represents like the court system, the legal system itself, right? And then when you take into account that his Saturn is forming, I think it's in trine. Let me see. His Saturn is, in trine to his Pluto, and it's forming a sextile to his Uranus. So this could absolutely reflect somebody who gets into like legal disputes based off of the actions of other people, or based off of there being some kind of shady dealings, especially with that Pluto there. So yeah, hey, it is what it is. Oh, also before I forget, real quick, that his Mars squaring his Neptune, this could also produce somebody who has very kind of perverse inclinations, in the sense that these people, and of course I don't have his birth time, so it would help to know exactly what house in his chart that these planets fall in. But these people can be like the type of people who get carried away with sexual fantasies, and it can lead them towards kind of like the darker side, which I think is kind of interesting, because he's had this reputation for like being a pedophile. Now, whether or not we can have a discussion about, okay, whether that was him or his friend doing whatever with young girls, but I'm just reading it the way that I see it in his chart. All right. So that concludes my reading for Mr. Tekashi 6ix9ine. You guys be sure to like this video, share with a friend, drop down in that comment section. Let me know what you thought about the reading. And, feel free to suggest any of your favorite celebs that you would like to see me cover in the future. And as always, make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until next time,